United Nations troops exchange gunfire with an armed group near the president's residence in the Central African Republic. Outrage and empathy motivate the U.S. State Department's International Women of Courage honorees from around the world. And the innovative projects from the next Einstein Forum in Rwanda. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin this evening in the Central African Republic, where an unidentified gunman opened fire on a United Nations base on Sunday, capping a day that saw at least one civilian killed and dozens of people injured. The UN says the gunman fired on a part of the base that houses Egyptian and Jordanian peacekeepers. The Sunday night attack sparked a 30-minute gun battle in which no one was killed or injured. Now, hours before, dozens were injured as peacekeepers and domestic security forces moved into dismantle militia bases in Banguy's PK5 neighborhood, a Muslim enclave in the majority Christian city. MINUSCA says it raided the bases of PK5 groups, made arrests and seized weapons and drugs. Central African Republic was torn apart after mainly Muslim Seleka rebels ousted President Francois Bozizé in 2013, provoking retaliation killings by anti-Balaka, mainly Christian armed groups. U.S. President Donald Trump is blaming Russian President Vladimir Putin as well as Iran for enabling an alleged poisonous attack in Syria late Saturday. Syrian activists and medical sources say at least 40 people have died. The suspected chlorine attack came during a government offensive to retake rebel-held areas near Damascus after the collapse of a truce with the Army of Islam rebel groups. Here's VOA's Laditza Hoke.
Images of children suffering after an alleged chemical attack on the rebel-held town of Douma near Syria's capital Damascus have sparked renewed international outrage. Witnesses said patients gave off a chlorine-like smell and some had bluish skin, which can be a sign of oxygen deprivation. In a tweet Sunday, Trump called the attack sick and mindless and promised a big price to pay. White House Homeland Security Advisor Thomas Bossert told ABC's This Week show that the president is discussing options with his senior national security cabinet.
This isn't just the United States. This is one of those issues on which every nation, all peoples have all agreed and have agreed since World War II is an unacceptable practice.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused the West of supporting the Syrian government.
Hey West, when will you turn around and look at these children, these women who are being killed in eastern Ghouta, so we can say you're acting justly?
The alleged chlorine attack on Saturday came days after Trump said he wanted to pull out U.S. troops from Syria against the advice of his military leaders. Bossert said the United States has contributed more than its share to the world's security.
It is time to move that pendulum back in a way that brings regional partners and others with equities in these matters all around the globe into putting their resources and their treasure and their boys and girls on the line, and not just American troops. American troops aren't going to fix the 6 or 7 different ongoing conflicts and wars going on in the Middle East or in Syria at this stage.
The U.S. State Department has called on Russia to stop supporting the Syrian president and to work with the international community to prevent further barbaric chemical weapons attacks. Russia and Syria denied that a chemical attack took place. Assad's forces were accused of a similar attack against rebels in Idlib almost exactly a year ago. International investigators concluded that the Syrian Air Force most likely used sarin gas in that attack, which killed 100 people. Zlaritsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, German authorities have foiled a plot by extremists to carry out an attack on Berlin's half marathon. 6 people have been detained in connection with the plan. In a joint statement, prosecutors and police say there were isolated indications that those arrested, aged between 18 and 21, were participating in the preparation of a crime in connection with this event. The German daily Die Welt first reported that police were able to stop a plan to attack race spectators and participants with knives. The paper also reported the main suspect apparently knew Anis Amri, a Tunisian asylum seeker who killed 12 people when he hijacked a truck and drove it into a crowded Berlin market in December 2016. The White House is defending President Donald Trump's decision to deploy military personnel to the U.S.-Mexico border. So far, only a few American states have agreed to provide National Guard troops to support federal border patrol agents. Viewers Michael Bowman reports from Washington, where the president's larger immigration agenda has been mostly blocked.
South Texas farmer and Army veteran Ruperto Escobar has agreed to allow U.S. soldiers on his land, which backs up to the Rio Grande.
But if we can stop 50% of the illegal drugs coming across here, they come. I've seen them at night. I hear them.
In Mexico, meanwhile, Central American migrants protest outside the U.S. Embassy, saying they had no choice but to flee their home countries.
We are suffering a lot from the government, from the gangs. People don't understand. There is no education.
President Donald Trump remains adamant, tweeting, quote, "We are sealing up our southern border. The people of our great country want safety and security."
You have to send a red light. Stop coming, stop taking that journey.
White House officials are not swayed by statistics showing a reduction in illegal border crossings last year.
Now, we've got a leaking boat on our border, and we're all quibbling with how much water is in the boat and how fast we're bailing it out. I think at this point, the president's been pretty clear. Enough is enough. Fix the actual problem and stop that leak.
2 U.S. border states, Arizona and Texas, responded swiftly to Trump's call and agreed to provide National Guard troops. Others have not responded or signaled they will decline. Oregon Governor Kate Brown tweeted, quote, "I am deeply troubled by Trump's plan to militarize our border."
You're not going to secure a border just by adding National Guard troops.
Senator Graham helped craft bipartisan legislation to enhance U.S. border security, reform legal immigration, and provide legal status to undocumented immigrants brought to America as children. The White House preemptively rejected the proposal as dead on arrival. Meanwhile, the Republican-led Senate voted down Trump's ambitious immigration reform blueprint. Courts halted his order to eliminate deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA, and Congress has approved only minimal funding for new physical barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border. Graham says a bipartisan deal on immigration is still needed, as are efforts to improve living conditions in Central America and elsewhere.
People from the south of us do not have sound economies, and if you don't fix the economic magnet, you'll never solve the immigration problem. So building a wall alone won't do anything.
Trump is likely to be pressed on his immigration and trade agenda later this week at the Summit of the Americas in Peru. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Now, although Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has apologized for what he calls a breach of trust regarding the data exploitation of up to 87 million users by Cambridge Analytica, is likely to get grilled on Capitol Hill this week as he prepares to testify before Congress. However, it remains to be seen whether the hearing will bring about real change around privacy rights. Viewers Tina Trina has more.
Mark Zuckerberg can admit when he's wrong.
We didn't take a broad enough view of what our responsibility is, and that was a huge mistake. It was my mistake.
So can Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg.
Well, we made big mistakes, and we know that.
But the Facebook executives aren't taking all the blame.
The vast majority of the data that Facebook knows about you is because you chose to share it.
It was information people had already listed on Facebook publicly.
And those justifications may offer a preview of deliberations next week as Zuckerberg prepares to testify before Congress for the mishandling of potentially 87 million users' data by political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica.
in the United States, a lot of what goes on online platforms, including Facebook, but also the app stores, all of this is sort of governed by self-regulation. The types of auditing, the types of actual enforcement that goes on is not super clear.
And that means tech companies pay a comparatively small price for their bad behavior.
The FTC was able to extract a fine from Google, but it was only $20 million, which I believe is about half of a day's revenue from Google. So, the fines are sort of just the cost of doing business.
That business still involves sharing user data with third-party app developers. Despite the lack of transparency, Sandberg makes the social media giant's goals sound noble.
We believed in a world where people could share and experience things together, and we just weren't thinking enough about the bad use cases.
Come Tuesday, they'll have to think a little bit harder. With Yulia Alieva in Washington, Tina Trin, VOA News, New York.
Now, outrage, compassion, and a desire for justice. These are some of the motivations of 10 women honored by the U.S. State Department this year with the International Women of Courage Award. VOA's Michael Sullivan spoke with several recipients at a recent stop in Los Angeles.
To Mauritania now.
Honored in Washington, March 23rd by First Lady Melania Trump, the women include Maluma Saeed, who was born into slavery, became a civil rights activist, and is now a deputy in the Mauritanian National Assembly. Some of the honorees came to Los Angeles, including one who works with the survivors of the massacres, rape, and torture in Kosovo in 1998 and 1999, when Yugoslav and Serb forces targeted ethnic Albanians suspected of supporting rebel fighters.
And the stories of the mother, the story of the girls, of children, of parents that I heard really affected me a lot. And sometimes I cried with them, I shared emotion with them.
She created a program to help refugees, especially women, offering them
psychotherapy, medical therapy, legal aid when it's needed, social support, as well as empowerment program, because majority of those women and girls, unfortunately, are living in extreme poverty.
The 1994 Rwanda genocide spurred another woman's efforts to bring the perpetrators to justice. Her husband and daughter were murdered, possibly because of her activism. She now works with rape victims and their children.
First to identify them, and then to get them to become members of forums where they can meet together and deal with the trauma that they have been through.
A forensic pathologist from Honduras and a criminal lawyer from Kazakhstan work to bring justice to victims of sexual violence.
For Kazakh women, sex violence will be was as a taboo, and so it is important today speak openly about gender-based violence.
While old attitudes persist, she says her country has strong laws protecting those who speak out.
But many cases finished without suitable compensation for victims.
She's fighting to change that. The moderator of the Los Angeles Forum says these women inspire others to stand up against injustice.
Whether it feels small in comparison to what some of these women may have experienced in their lives in their countries, but when you suppress or silence women and girls anywhere, it has a dramatic impact on the entire globe.
And she says these women activists are having a global impact. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCorry. Now coming up, African scientists compete at the 2018 Next Einstein Forum. Stay with us. But now robots are constantly being programmed to add new skills to their repertoire. In Italy, the first dedicated interactive service robot, Robbie, the hotel concierge, and his brother, Kayuki, the car salesman, taking the country by storm with their technological efficiencies. In Finland, another kind of robot, Elias, is thrilling classrooms with his language and dancing skills. His viewer is Maria Diallo.
Just 30 centimeters tall, Elias likes to dance Gangnam Style when he's not teaching. But besides his dancing skills, the co-founder of the company who made Elias says, when it comes to learning, robots are hard to beat.
Robot is neutral. It doesn't laugh if you make mistakes, and it doesn't get tired of repeating words.
Do you want me to say? Whether it's learning new languages or getting tutored in math, kids find robots both educational and entertaining.
Well, it is fun, interesting, and exciting, and I am a bit shy.
One language teacher sees robots as another tool in her educational arsenal. She says having them in classrooms is something teachers should be open-minded about.
Ice cream.
I see Elias as one of the tools to, get different kind of practice and different kind of activities into the classroom.
And in case teachers worry they might be replaced by robots, one student says there is no reason to worry just yet.
Well, maybe there still has to be a teacher to keep the kids behaved.
This robot is programmed to speak and understand nearly 25 languages. Its makers say it's equipped with software that helps it behave in a way that encourages learning.
Yes.
In Italy, the first robot concierge is already serving guests. His name is Robbie Pepper, and he can answer questions about the hotel, and he's learning new tricks all the time.
The questions he can answer are the ones that have been taught to him, but naturally he came here to learn, and he will continuously be learning.
This hotel guest from Moldova was impressed with Pepper's skills.
He's a real person. He's really good. He talks, he shook my hand, and he's perfect. Good job, robot.
Bravo, robot.
This is Pepper's brother, Kayuki, Italy's first robotic car dealer. That's his picture on the entrance of the shopping center where the car dealership that employs him is located. Inside, Kayuki is ready to give you specs and sell you a car. Robots will never entirely replace humans, but they can make it easier for people to do their jobs and sometimes more entertaining. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, fascinating. Now, the 5th USA Science and Engineering Festival Expo was held over the weekend in Washington, D.C. Over 3,000 exhibits from the world's leading scientific and engineering societies, universities, government agencies, high-tech corporations, and STEM organizations were displayed. Viewers Sunday Shumari attended the 2-day expo and joins me now to talk about the festival. Welcome to Africa 54 Sunday.
Thank you, Vincent.
So what would you say was the highlight, or what are the highlights of this festival this year?
As you said, there were so many shows, more than 3,000 in this huge arena in Washington, D.C. As you know, the convention center that takes almost 2 million square feet. It's a big, huge place, yeah. But there were so many things going on. Going to the Mars Expo for the children to see that, and also they had this Asimo robot, as you just spoke about robots taking over. But this was the Asimo robot.
What does Asimo do? Because almost every robot is made to perform a particular function.
Right.
Tell us a little more about Asimo.
Yeah. When you talk about Asimo, now, this is developed by Honda. This is the arm of robotics and humanoids that have been done for a while. They've been researching this for the past more than 30 years. And they said when they started in the beginning, it was difficult just to get him stand up and walk. But now...
He's walking up the stairs.
Exactly.
Down
you see, walking up the stairs, down the stairs.
Oh, man.
And not only that, but he's interacting and taking commands, as you remember.
Lifting up their hands.
Exactly.
Waving at people.
Waving at people.
Yeah.
They allowed him to take a challenge of a penalty soccer. Penalty soccer.
That's cool.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he was happy. I mean, just after doing it, you can see him waiting to be plowed.
Exactly.
And he understands that, oh, I'm in Washington, D.C.
It's like a human being. It's
like
almost scary, man.
Now,
rather fascinating and possibly revolutionary other invention actually is what? The Unicub.
Yes, Unicub.
What is that? What is it supposed to do, this robot?
Okay, this is a mobility tool that helps people with disability or who can walk for a long walk just to sit on it. It's like a stool, actually.
Yeah.
You sit on it, and it moves.
I like this thing. For some of us, who knows, when we are getting a bit older, we might need some of this.
Exactly.
Right? But also very important for like people
Yes.
who have physical
disabilities and all that, yes.
Right?
Because with this one, you really don't have to touch anything.
Yeah.
Once you sit down, you use your body weight
Yeah.
and just power forward or push forward, you can move. It is also omnidirectional. So it has been really a tool that they've been working since 2016, I believe they said. And
so how do you turn it? I saw it turning.
You just turn your body.
Turn your body.
Simple as that, yeah. It turns with you.
This is cool. This is cool. If we had time, we would have spoken a little more about the banana piano, but time is not on our side.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and
Sure.
sharing this with us. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
going
sir.
to cover that event.
Thanks a lot.
That's Sandesh Shamari, who went to this STEM festival. Now, in Africa, 16 African scientists competed recently in Rwanda for a chance to solve some of the most pressing problems in their communities. Chuka Odo reports from Kigali, which hosted the 4th annual Next Einstein Forum.
For about 3 years now, this team has been working on a mobile health app for HIV patients. Joel Gasana, the head of the team, is a medical student at a nearby university. The app that they've created will help HIV patients keep up with their treatment.
In Rwanda, we have a very high prevalence of HIV, which is about 3.3% of the population, and data are showing that more than 27% of people on medication, they are not adherent. That's what pushed me to create an application which will help us to make sure that all patients are adherent to medication.
The team has been selected to compete for an innovation prize at this year's Next Einstein Forum held in Rwanda.
This is the Next Einstein Forum 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda. Welcome.
The Next Einstein Forum is said to be the largest gathering of African scientists. They discuss innovations to solve local problems. After a musical opening ceremony, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame opened the forum.
For too long, Africa has allowed itself to be left behind, but that's starting to change as we see in the important work on display at this forum.
Dr. Rose Mutiso is a clean energy technologist.
I think it's been really refreshing and really inspiring to see that this community exists. This is a kind of growing and formidable force, and we're part of the global scientific community.
Joel is practicing his pitch. After 3 days of events and panel discussions, it's time to conclude the science competition.
I'm about to do my final pitch. Wish me luck.
Conrad Tenku from Cameroon pitched a digital project to help women with cervical cancer. Rachel Sibande from Malawi presents an initiative to generate electricity from maize. In his final effort, Joel explains why his app deserves to win.
Respond on the app.
And finally, the winner is announced. And it's Conrad Tenku from Cameroon. He won $25,000.
I'd like to say it's the first time this project is actually getting any recognition.
This conference was a great thing for me. I got an endorsement during my pitch. I got an endorsement from the Ministry of Health, from the Rwanda Biomedical Center, and we have now an appointment in the next week.
The forum ends with smiles and a renewed commitment to promote science across Africa. Chika Odua for VOA News, Kigali.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a colorful solution to Indonesia's plastic waste problem. We'll be right back.
In the Central African Republic, dozens are wounded in clashes between militia and UN peacekeepers in PK5, the Muslim district of Bangui. The head of the South African opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has been re-elected as its new leader. In Zimbabwe, NDC Alliance leader Nelson Chamisa addresses his first rally in Bulawayo following the death of Morgan Tsvangirai in February. In Sierra Leone, defeated presidential candidate Samura Kamara congratulates victor Julius Maada Bio and vows to throw his party's support behind the new administration. Finally, in Egypt, Coptic Orthodox Christians celebrate Easter in Cairo and attend Mass on Saturday night under high security.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. An Indonesian startup is making edible cups and ice cream cones made from seaweed. The process is simple. Powdered seaweed is mixed with boiling water. The hot mixture is then poured into molds and left to settle for about 15 minutes. It's then placed in a refrigerator to harden. So why seaweed? Indonesia's share of global farmed seaweed production grew from nearly 7% in 2005 to almost 37% in 2014. According to a 2015 report in journal Science, Indonesia is the world's second largest plastic polluter after China, with a 27% share of global plastic waste. Well, and finally, meet Starbucks' latest drink trend, the Unicorn Frappuccino. The coffee chain says the drink was inspired by the trend of unicorn-themed food online and starts out purple with a sweet and fruity taste. It changes to pink and tart after it's stirred to mix in a blue drizzle. It will be available from April 19th to April 23rd in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Earlier this month, Starbucks also introduced a pink drink made with coconut milk and topped with strawberries. The company says it had previously been a customized drink that enjoyed fandom online. And that's what's trending today. And that's our show. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here, have a good night.
Zibracorn is going to be a company that's built in Africa, for Africa, and scaled in Africa.